Denny and I had been meeting up about once a month for a number of years. We both lived in the DC area and we belonged to a couple different writing groups together. And so we just kind of connected and would meet either at her house or my house or another friend's house that used to write with us. And it was probably 2019 and we were on our lunch break. And as most historical fiction authors and history nerds do on their lunch break, they just do research for fun on things that they saw randomly. And one of the things we had seen randomly was something called the Wrong Door Raid. And the Wrong Door Raid was Joe DiMaggio and Frank Sinatra hacking down a door with an axe. They thought that it was Marilyn Monroe's apartment. It wasn't. Never heard this story before, and come to find out it was like a trial. There's videos of it and everything. So we were just kind of researching on that and looking into Marilyn Monroe's past. And then we came across this advertisement that said that Marilyn Monroe and Ella Fitzgerald had signed a contract to produce an album called Friends. And we were like, wait a second, that's really like telling, like they were friends and also they were writing an album. How come this album never came to be? We found some pictures of them together, candid ones and then also posed ones. And we just had to tell their story. We couldn't believe that we hadn't heard about this before. And we really wanted to find out what had happened to that album. And it comes, you find out that there was some personal issues between Marilyn and her husband that ended up being the reason the album wasn't made. But they both did sing some of the same songs that are recorded. So we like to think that maybe those would have been on the album. I like to find people's voice by either, if there are recorded interviews or anything like that, watching interviews of them in real life, and then also reading any letters or anything like that. And Marilyn had basically co-authored a, sort of like a memoir of her thoughts and like her life with another person. So I was able to read that and get an idea of her voice, but more importantly, there was also a published book of like her like little diaries. She was very much a diary journaler. And so I got to read that and read more into her head, obviously watched the interviews, but I also watched the movies. And the interesting thing about the movies is you see her as a young actress really working hard to build her way up to becoming the huge starlet that she was. And then you see her in these prime roles. But then towards the end, you can actually see the decline in her acting ability and also like the way like she looks on screen as far as like health-wise. And I'd never noticed that before. I took a number of film classes in college and we watched movies and so I was familiar with her work, but I hadn't studied it from a viewpoint of trying to get into her head. And so that was really surprising for me. So The Queen's Faithful Companion is a really fun novel about Queen Elizabeth II and the relationship that she had with her corgi, Susan. Susan was a gift that was given to her by her father on her 18th birthday, and they had corgis in the family before that time, but they were family dogs. So this was like her first dog that was just her very own, and I think she formed a really special bond with Susan. Susan ended up being the matriarch of 14 generations of Windsor corgis, and just a very, very special relationship with her. Now, the third point of view in the book is from Hannah. Hannah is a combination of a couple different keepers of the Queen's corgis. That was an actual real job. And I really wanted to have that point of view in the book to kind of get a servant's point of view of working with the Queen, but also maybe more of like a little bit of a friendship. They were a lot closer than she would have been with any of the other servants. And the reason I got that idea was that the Queen did not go to anyone's funerals. There was just too many people that worked for the crown that if she was always going to funerals, that would have taken up a lot of time. So it was just sort of like a standard rule. But when her keeper passed away, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, she did go to that funeral. And then she took in the corgi that she had gifted him, which was part of Susan's line. The other fun thing about that book is that I was able to tell Susan's story from Susan's point of view, which I thought was really fun because we get sort of like onto a baser level where we're dealing a lot with emotions and the senses from Susan's point of view, and seeing the Queen from that perspective, I think was really interesting to kind of show her as a person and as a companion versus like this amazing monarch that she was.